I worked for Sacramento Police Department for 23 years, and I rose to the rank of captain. In one of my captain's assignments for almost 3 years, I was in charge of the north area, which is everything north of the river. So everywhere you two go to school, I was in charge of that. I was in charge of Del Paso Heights, North Sac, Wood Lake, North Natomas, South Natomas, Northgate, Gardenland, all that. And most of my career I worked up there. I worked as a pop officer in the Manors. I taught high school at Grant High School for 3 years. I've coached at Grant High School. I still go to probably every one of their home football games. So I had all that stuff up in the north area. And the reason I was able to get to the rank of captain, while I was in Sacramento, I was the only black captain in the whole department. The reason was not because I was the smartest person. There's plenty of people smarter than me. There's plenty of people in this department that are smarter than me. There are plenty of people that work for me that are smarter than me, a lot smarter than me, in a lot of different areas. But nobody works harder than me. And nobody cares more about this community or anywhere I'm working more than I do. So when you go arrest somebody and say they have drugs or guns or any other kind of evidence, the officer has to come here and book the evidence into these lockers. Once the officer closes this locker, the officer can't get back in there because there has to be a chain of evidence. When it goes to court, you have to be able to prove that nobody's tampered with that evidence. So the officer can't even get his own evidence back out of this locker once they book it in there and close it because that key's not in there anymore. When I was growing up, the last thing on my mind was being a cop. But now I'm the chief of police of the police department. Yeah. They called me for this job. I didn't call them. This was the last thing on my mind. I never once thought about coming to Roseville. I barely had been to Roseville before I came here to work. Roseville recruiters called me. Now, if I wasn't a hard worker and I didn't give a darn about what I did and I didn't have a reputation in certain circles, they would have never called me. I'd still be in Sac PD doing what I was doing. But because of what I've done in my past, as Jordan said, don't be the guy that works hard right now, be the guy that's always worked hard. So this is where all our detectives work. So they don't typically wear a uniform. Matter of fact, that's the detective sergeant that you see walking down there. So these are the guys after the patrol officer takes like a burglary report or a robbery report and they didn't arrest anybody, the report would come to them and they would investigate it and try to figure out who the suspect is.
I know we've discussed with a lot of boys about being out late at night. Some of the parents have told me about not coming home, curfew. If you kind of explain to them the importance of the reasons why young African American boys don't need to be on the street at 9, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night, and what can happen if you're on solo after 11 or certain times.
In my opinion, kids that are out late at night like that are one of two things. They're either suspects or potential victims. And we used to do curfew sweeps in the Thomas, and I would tell parents that, my son ain't no suspect. I go, well, then he's a potential victim. Well, what do you mean? I go, well, because the suspects are out. So you see, if you look at here, this is an officer that's working today. So you see the computer system in there. They get their calls over that. They run people for their driver's license, whether they have warrants. They can do all sorts of research on the computer, whether they're looking at a house or a person. You see.
Ain't this the car that got the things where you can scan it with the license plate?
No, this one does not. We have cars that have that, license plate readers. Mm-hmm. That's a rifle and a beanbag shotgun. This is obviously the back of the squad car where the suspects go, and in the front they have all sorts of equipment. Yeah. So officers at any time could come down here and practice with their guns. Like, this isn't a bullet, but this is the casing that gets shot out the side of your gun as the bullet goes out the front. All the plastic stuff, that's like this shotgun that comes out of when you shoot the shotgun or the beanbag round. But the actual bullets you won't see because they're all the way up in the rubber.
Yeah, we've had some youth in our programs that already have had some police encounters. I'll say that. And maybe give them a few points at their age, if they're out and about, get stopped by an officer or get questioned what they should do, what they shouldn't do.
First of all, you might not have any clue on why that officer stopped you. So for you to jump bad right when that officer stopped you would be a little silly. They might very well, and hopefully most of the time, hopefully all the time, they have a legitimate reason to stop you. If you don't take your hands out of your pocket when they tell you, expect to get dumped on the ground. Why? Because that officer wants to go home that night and doesn't want to die. If I tell you to take your hands out of your pocket when I come up to talk to you and you don't take your hands out of your pocket, I'm going to assume you have a gun in your pocket, because why else won't you do what I tell you to do? PAL program I showed you across the street, that's,
you guys are all welcome in here?
He actually teaches MMA too.
I'll get some stuff out for them. They can play real quick. I'm gonna show you one kick. I'll show you a kick you can do. All right. So look, when you square up with the bag, you want to do a side kick like this. Okay. So what you want to do is, see on your leg right here, soft right here, soft here, and then real hard right there, right? So you want to hit with that bone that runs right down there. If you hit with the meat on either side, it's not very effective. So look, stand this way again. You feel that? I mean, you feel my boot, but it's soft, right? You feel the bone? I barely touch it. It hurts, right? That bone is hard like a bat. So when you kick the bag and you want to hit the bag, you've got to roll your leg over so that that bone, this part right here, is hitting it. You don't want to hit it with the meat. So when you step, this foot is going to turn all the way up. So like if I'm facing this way, I'm going to face the wall over here, like this. Now I can swing through.
Yeah, good pointer, good pointer.
Now remember, when I barely touch you like that with the bone, it hurt, right? So imagine, it's going to just, it crumples.
Yeah, yeah.
So try this. You can do this, come on.
Get your hands up like this.
If you do it completely wrong, it doesn't matter.
You do it.
Come on, show me, come on. Good fight, Stan.
Yeah.
Yep, just like that. With your shin bone, not your foot. You can do it.
Other way. Turn it that way. There you go.
You just got to use your shin bone, not your foot. That was good. Do it again.
I guarantee you there are people right now that are still like, how the heck did that happen? He grew up in Oak Park. I get questioned all the time, how'd you get successful coming out of Oak Park? In my acceptance speech for this job, when they swore me in, I said the greatest thing that ever happened to me is my mom, first of all. Second greatest thing is growing up in Oak Park. That's a great community, if you ask me. I was well taken care of in my neighborhood. My whole block took care of me. They whooped me, they took care of me, they made sure I stayed out of trouble. They taught me things. There's nothing wrong with growing up in any neighborhood. It's what you get out of it. It's up to you. It's not your teacher's fault, it's not your neighbor's fault, it's not your homeboy's fault. It's your fault if you're not successful. There's always a way for every single person in this country to be successful. All right?
Today is like, don't hang out with the wrong people and try to go to school and be successful in life.
Y'all want me to do well and go to college. And not be in jail and hang out with the wrong people.
Be successful, go to school, be the best person you can be, and really don't hang out with the wrong crowd.